Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Bukit Aman has frozen 206 bank accounts linked to Global Equine Services and Business Holdings, GISB, containing more than 1.35 million ringgit. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussain says the freeze covers 205 accounts worth 1.35 million ringgit and another holding $1,344 or 5,688 ringgit.
The accounts were frozen under Section 44(1) of the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act 2001. In addition to the accounts, 31 vehicles and 19 land lots were seized. Authorities also confiscated 16,850 ringgit in cash, 2 luxury watches and various animals valued at 230,000 ringgit. Meanwhile, Razaruddin said 24 individuals, including GISB CEO and other top brass, were expected to remain in custody to assist in investigations. They are currently under remand as part of an ongoing probe under the Anti-Trafficking in Persons and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants Act 2007. The IGP said the 24 people were re-arrested after their initial remand ended on September 30th. A 5-day remand was then granted to facilitate investigations over alleged forced labour offences. Additionally, the Selangor Islamic Religious Department, or JIS, has detained 108 individuals suspected of being involved with GISB for various Sharia-related crimes. This included matters of faith, unauthorised collection of donations and unlawful marriages. Investigations revealed that several aspects of the suspects' practices and beliefs contradicted established fatwa.
A Penang-bound Firefly flight from Sultan Abdul Aziz Shah Airport in Subang was forced to return shortly after takeoff due to smoke in the cabin. The Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia confirms that the aircraft experienced technical defects that required a turnaround. No injuries were reported. The aircraft was forced to turn back approximately 15 minutes into the flight at a point near Kappa. A preliminary report indicated that the flight encountered an extraction fan failure, causing the air conditioning system to overheat and smoke filling the cabin. A video recorded by a passenger showing the smoke-filled cabin has since gone viral. More than 75,000 Singaporean motorists have successfully activated their Vehicle Entry Permit VEP Radio Frequency Identification RFID tags ahead of the upcoming phased enforcement inspections at Johor's 2 land border crossings. Transport Minister Anthony Loh says that Malaysia also plans to open more VEP centres, including in Johor Bahru malls, to make it easier for motorists to install their RFID tags. This comes as the existing 3 VEP centres in Johor Bahru and 1 in Woodlands have mostly been overwhelmed by drivers' inquiries and requests for help with tag installation. Loh also urged Singaporean drivers to quickly apply for and register their VEP. The Road Transport Department will begin a phased enforcement operation where Singaporean motorists entering without the VEP tags will be issued warning notices. However, those who have registered and are still waiting for their RFID tags will not be penalised. So far, 50 reminders have been issued to Singaporean drivers entering without the VEP tags. A total of 75,412 motorists have activated their VEP RFID tags, while 37,246 are still pending activation. Anemia in children is a common yet often overlooked condition that have serious consequences on their development and overall well-being. Astro AWANI Saraya Mia speaks to UM's Professor Dr. Muhammad Yazid Jamaluddin to find out more about the risks of iron deficiency anemia in growing kids.
Now, 1 in 3 children in Malaysia are at risk of anemia, with low iron being the main cause of it. Now, I'm at the IWK Eco Park in Pantai Dalam for the launch of Danone and the Women, Family and Community Development Ministry with our guest for today, Professor Dr. Muhammad Yazid Jamaluddin, Professor and Senior Consultant Pediatric Endocrinologist from University Malaya. Now, I want to explore a little bit more about iron deficiency in children. Now, many children with iron deficiency don't show symptoms. What are the health risks for this group of children?
Okay, so 90% of children who have anemia do not have symptoms, and because the problem with symptoms is that you will only notice the symptom when hemoglobin is below 70, and because of that you have an issue of dose between 70 to 120. Okay, these are patients with children with anemia but no symptoms. The issue here is that even if they have no symptoms, their brain development is already affected. Because as we know, iron is very important for the production of the red blood cells. And if you don't have enough red blood cells, which is hemoglobin, you cannot carry good amount of oxygen to your brain, where your brain needs to develop. And because of that, the brain development is poor, the complexity of the brain development is affected, and hence, in the long run, IQ can be affected. That's on one part to the brain development. The other things that we have to look into is also the issues with stunting. Because again, we need hemoglobin, we need the red blood cells to bring all the nutrients to all our organs, the heart, the liver, even the bones, for them to grow tall. And if you don't have enough hemoglobin, the children will not grow tall as like other kids, and because of that they will have stunting. And the third thing that is important is immune system. So if you do not have enough hemoglobin, your immune system do not develop well, and because of that they can have more infections, and this will continue to cause them to have recurrent infection. And we know children can easily get infection because there's so many of them in one, kindergarten or even Taska. So because of that low immune system, they continue to have repeated infection.
In order to tackle this silent epidemic, Professor Dr. Muhammad Yazid urges for a united and coordinated effort among the stakeholders. This includes a non-invasive nationwide screening program for anemia.
We need to screen. And when we talk about screening, we have to screen early. And that's why in our guidelines, we advocate to screen all children between 9 months to 12 months. Start the screening and then yearly screening up to 5 years. How and why we actually advocate for that is because now we have new machines, new technique that you can do non-invasive screening. I understand parents are very scared when we talk about screening where we need to take blood from your child. No parents would want their child who do not have symptoms to have their finger prick or heel prick, to get the blood done, to screen for anemia. But now we have the non-invasive screening, it takes you only 30 seconds to get the result. So I think if you were to do this kind of screening, mass screening throughout Malaysia, not just for children, I would say, using the non-invasive method is the way to go, because we understand even young girls, young women going into pregnancy have issues with anemia. If the mother has anemia problem during pregnancy, that will also cause problem to the fetal growth, and that will cause small gestational age children being born.
We'll go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Rambut gugur lagi? Macam mana Gunakan Pantene Baharu dengan provitamin mikro yang meresap dan menguatkan rambut dari dalam. Rambut 10 kali lebih kuat terhadap rambut gugur. Pantene Baharu.
At least 6 people were killed and another 8 wounded after an Israeli airstrike on a building in the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Israel's military says it was a precision attack on a multi-story block that housed a Hezbollah-affiliated health center. It is the first Israeli strike close to central Beirut, just 1 kilometer away from Lebanon's parliament and the Prime Minister's office. 5 other airstrikes were recorded overnight against targets in the southern suburb of Deir. Prior to that, Lebanon's health ministry said 46 people had been killed and 85 injured in Israeli bombing over the last 24 hours. The latest attacks come after the Israel Defense Forces said 8 soldiers were killed during combat in southern Lebanon, marking its first losses since the start of ground operations against Hezbollah. Meanwhile, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah reportedly agreed to a 21-day ceasefire with Israel before he was killed in an Israeli airstrike, says Lebanon's foreign minister. Abdullah Abu Habib, when speaking to CNN, said that Hezbollah had agreed to the ceasefire and that they had informed the US and French representatives about the decision as well.
The temporary ceasefire was proposed by US President Joe Biden and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron and other allies during the United Nations General Assembly last week. In the same week, however, Nasrallah was killed in a targeted strike on Hezbollah's underground headquarters in Deir. Netanyahu later announced that he had rejected the proposal, saying that the military will continue to fight with full force. The United Nations Security Council yesterday held an emergency meeting on the Middle East situation, calling for a cessation of hostilities in Lebanon.
1.4 million people in Gaza did not receive food rations in September. According to Philippe Lazzarini, Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, this is up from 1 million people in August, emphasizing that the hunger in Gaza is entirely man-made.
He said more than 100,000 metric tons of food have been cut off from Gaza due to restricted access, insecurity, damaged roads, and the breakdown of law and order, while nearly 70% of crop fields have been destroyed, forcing the population to rely solely on humanitarian aid. He said the situation is worsening as winter approaches, with deteriorating weather conditions and shortage of essential supplies. Israel launched a large-scale offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip on October 7th last year, and more than 41,000 Palestinian deaths have been recorded since then. Almost a year later, no ceasefire deal has materialized.
Former Singapore Transport Minister S. Iswaran was sentenced to 12 months jail for accepting gifts worth over $313,000 while in public office. The 62-year-old pleaded guilty to the offence, cutting short what was said to be a protracted trial with 56 prosecution witnesses.
Justice Vincent Hong, who oversaw the case in Singapore's High Court, emphasized that Iswaran's crimes were an abuse of power and jeopardized people's trust in public institutions. The gifts he received while in office included tickets to the Formula One Grand Prix, a Brompton T-Line bicycle, alcohol, and a ride on a private jet. Iswaran will report to prison on October 7th. He is Singapore's first political figure to be tried in court in nearly 50 years. Singapore's lawmakers are among the highest paid in the world, with some ministers earning more than $758,000. Leaders justify the handsome salaries by saying it combats corruption.
In Taiwan, at least 9 people were killed in a hospital electrical fire as the island was being battered by a typhoon. The fire occurred in Pingtung County, which has been hit hard by Typhoon Kraton, which made landfall in the afternoon with torrential rains and heavy winds.
Authorities said those who died inhaled smoke from the fire, but the source of the fire was still under investigation. Soldiers from a nearby base were mobilized to aid medical workers and firefighters in the evacuation of patients and putting out the flames. Pingtung County has been hit hard by Typhoon Kraton, which brought parts of Taiwan to a standstill. Earlier on Thursday, 2 people were killed after Kraton made landfall in the major port city of Kaohsiung in the southwest of Taiwan.
That wraps up AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.